January 1943. A freezing wind moves through the shattered ruins of Stalingrad. Snow drifts slowly across streets that no longer resemble a city. Burned factories stand like skeletons against the gray winter sky. A German soldier walks slowly through the wreckage. His uniform hangs loosely from his thin frame. His boots drag through the snow. His hands tremble uncontrollably from the cold. Around him lie burned-out tanks, shattered artillery, and frozen bodies half buried in ice. Only months earlier, this army had been one of the most powerful in Europe. Now, it is dying. More than 250,000 soldiers of the Wehrmacht are trapped inside the ruins of Stalingrad. Surrounded by the Soviet Red Army, there is almost no food left. Ammunition is nearly gone. Many soldiers are too weak even to stand. The end of the German Sixth Army is only days away. But only weeks earlier, these same soldiers believed victory was certain. Everything changed because of a Soviet plan. A plan bold enough to destroy an entire army. A plan called Operation Uranus. The city that refused to die. For months, the battle for Stalingrad had become the most brutal confrontation of the Second World War. The city stretched along the banks of the Volga River, a massive industrial center of factories, rail yards, and workers' housing. But by the autumn of 1942, almost all of it had been reduced to rubble. German forces of the Sixth Army, commanded by General Friedrich Paulus, had pushed deep into the city. Street by street, building by building. By November, German troops controlled nearly 90% of Stalingrad. For the German High Command, victory appeared close. But the city refused to fall. Hidden among the ruins, Soviet soldiers continued to fight. And every night, new soldiers arrived. The Volga crossing. Behind the battlefield flowed the dark waters of the Volga River. It was the Soviet Army's lifeline, the only route through which reinforcements could reach the defenders of Stalingrad. Night after night, small wooden boats pushed away from the eastern bank, packed with soldiers. Some were young recruits who had never seen battle. Others were exhausted veterans returning to the fight. The men sat silently as the boats moved into the darkness. Ahead of them, the burning ruins of Stalingrad lit the horizon with a dull orange glow. Every soldier knew the truth. Crossing the Volga meant entering one of the deadliest battles in history. But failing to cross it meant disappearing beneath the freezing river. Suddenly, the quiet night was broken by a distant sound. Aircraft engines. Within seconds, the sky filled with the roar of planes from the German Luftwaffe. Dive bombers descended toward the river. Machine guns opened fire. Bullets ripped across the water. Bombs exploded around the boats, sending huge columns of water into the air. One boat vanished in a flash of fire. Another rolled onto its side and sank. Men thrown into the freezing river tried desperately to swim, but the Volga in winter was merciless. Within minutes, the icy water drained their strength. Many disappeared beneath the surface forever. And yet, the crossings continued. Because the defenders of Stalingrad had only two choices: keep sending men across the river, or lose the city. Inside Stalingrad, the battle became something entirely new. There were no front lines, only ruins. Every building was a fortress, every staircase a battlefield. Sometimes German soldiers occupied the ground floor of a building, while Soviet troops waited above them on the second floor. Grenades exploded through doorways, rifles fired down narrow corridors. The Soviets called this brutal kind of combat the War of the Rats. Soldiers crawled through holes blasted in walls. They moved through sewer tunnels beneath the city. They attacked through shattered factory floors. The massive industrial complexes became killing grounds. The Red October Steel Factory, the Berikati Gun Factory. Inside these shattered buildings, the sound of gunfire never stopped. Day or night. Among the Soviet defenders was a young soldier from Siberia. His name was Vasily Zaitsev. Before the war, he had been a hunter in the mountains. He knew patience. He knew how to wait. In the ruins of Stalingrad, those skills became deadly. Zaitsev moved quietly through the broken city, hiding among shattered walls, watching German positions through his rifle scope. Officers, machine gun crews, artillery observers. One by one, they fell. Soon his name spread through the Soviet ranks, and dozens of new snipers followed his example, turning the ruins of Stalingrad into a deadly hunting ground. For German soldiers, every broken window became a possible rifle barrel. Every shadow could hide a sniper. Fear spread through the German lines. The wind from the open steppe cut through the ruined city. Temperatures dropped below -20 degrees. Soon they would fall even lower. Weapons froze. Machine guns jammed. Soldiers wrapped their rifles inside their coats to keep them warm enough to fire. Hands cracked and bled in the freezing air. Many soldiers sat awake through the night, because those who fell asleep sometimes never woke again. Morning light often revealed bodies frozen in the snow. While the German army fought inside Stalingrad, its front lines stretched dangerously across the surrounding steppe. The flanks of the Sixth Army were not protected by German divisions. Instead, they were held by Allied forces of the Axis. Romanian forces guarded the northern sector. Italian and Hungarian troops defended the south. These armies fought bravely, but they lacked tanks. They lacked modern anti-tank weapons, and their defensive lines were thin. For Soviet commanders, this weakness was an opportunity. In Moscow, two Soviet generals studied the situation: Georgy Zhukov and Alexander Vasilevsky. Both understood something critical. The German army inside Stalingrad could not easily retreat. If Soviet forces struck the weak flanks, the entire Sixth Army could be surrounded. Their plan was daring. Strike from the north, strike from the south, then close the trap. The operation was given a code name: Operation Uranus. Across the frozen steppe surrounding Stalingrad, an uneasy silence settled over the battlefield. The wind swept across the open plains, carrying with it fine clouds of snow. Somewhere far in the distance, the ruins of the city burned faintly against the horizon. But here, beyond the German lines, something enormous was waiting in the darkness. Thousands of Soviet soldiers stood hidden across the steppe. Tank engines had been shut down hours earlier. Artillery batteries lay concealed beneath camouflage nets. No fires were allowed, no lights, only the sound of the cold wind moving across the frozen earth. Among the silent formations stood rows of trucks, each carrying one of the Soviet Union's most feared weapons: the Katyusha rocket launchers. Long rails pointed toward the western horizon, toward the German front. Beside one launcher, a rocket crew worked quietly in the darkness. A soldier wiped frost from the metal launch rails. Another carefully connected the firing cables. Each rocket was lifted into place by frozen hands. Heavy, cold, deadly. The men moved quickly, but without speaking. They all understood the importance of what was about to happen. For weeks, Soviet commanders had prepared this moment. The plan had been designed by Georgy Zhukov and Alexander Vasilevsky, a massive counteroffensive, a trap meant to encircle the German Sixth Army. Somewhere behind the lines, officers checked their watches. Dawn was only hours away. One of the rocket crew lit a cigarette, shielding the small flame from the wind. For a moment, the orange glow illuminated his frozen breath. Another soldier slowly adjusted the launcher's elevation. The rails creaked as they turned toward the distant German positions. Beyond the darkness lay the front lines of the Wehrmacht. Thousands of German soldiers slept in their trenches, unaware of what was waiting for them. The rocket crew stepped back from the launcher. Everything was ready. Soon, the order would come. And when it did, the silence of the steppe would shatter. Dozens of rockets would scream into the night sky. Within seconds, the horizon would burn with fire. And the storm unleashed by the Katyusha batteries would signal the beginning of one of the most devastating counterattacks of the entire war. At 7:20 on the morning of November 19th, the silence shattered. Thousands of Soviet artillery guns fired at once. The earth shook, the sky filled with smoke. Then came the sound German soldiers would never forget. The terrifying scream of the Katyusha rockets. Dozens of rockets launched into the sky in waves of fire. Their blazing trails cut through the fog. Seconds later, the explosions arrived. Entire defensive positions vanished beneath the barrage. Trenches collapsed. Vehicles burned. German soldiers gave the weapon a name: Stalin's organ, because its rockets fired in rapid waves, like the pipes of a giant church organ playing a song of destruction. As the artillery barrage ended, Soviet armor surged forward. Columns of powerful T-34 tanks smashed through the shattered defenses. Romanian divisions fought desperately to hold the line, but they were overwhelmed. The following day, November 20th, Soviet forces attacked again from the south. Once more, the Axis defenses collapsed. Two massive armored spearheads now raced across the steppe, driving westward toward each other. The trap. On November 23, 1942, the two Soviet armies met near the town of Kalach-on-Don. The encirclement was complete. Nearly 300,000 Axis soldiers were trapped. At the center of the pocket stood the German Sixth Army, now completely surrounded. At first, German commanders believed rescue would come. But days passed. The Soviet ring grew stronger. Temperatures fell below -30 degrees. Frostbite spread through the ranks. Men lost fingers. Toes turned black from the cold. Starvation. German aircraft attempted to supply the trapped army. But the Sixth Army required more than 600 tons of supplies every day. The planes delivered only a fraction of that. Food ran out. Horses were slaughtered. Later, even scraps of leather were boiled for nourishment. Hunger became relentless. By January 1943, the situation was hopeless. German units were isolated. Many soldiers were too weak to fight. On January 31, 1943, General Friedrich Paulus surrendered. 2 days later, on February 2nd, the final resistance ended. The Battle of Stalingrad was over. The victory at Stalingrad changed the war. For the first time, Nazi Germany had suffered a catastrophic defeat. From this moment forward, the Red Army would push westward. across Eastern Europe, relentlessly. Until, 3 years later, their soldiers raised the Soviet flag over the ruins of Berlin.